Hello and welcome to this conversation, which is coming to you from Bridgestone's headquarters in Warwick. And we're going to be talking about road safety, the role of data, and what the future may look like for fleet managers and drivers. Now, I have three guests to help me with that conversation.
So my name's Gary Powell. I'm the technical manager for Bridgestone tyres. I've been in the industry for 31 years. I've been a tyre designer for 12 and 21 years with Bridgestone. So nice to meet you all.
And I'm Karl Baker from Halfords. I run our mobile van business, and we've acquired a number of businesses over the last few years, and we've built up a large fleet of vans that run across the UK. So I run that business for Halfords.
And my name's James Dewhurst. I'm the UK Sales Director for Webfleet. My focus is really on making sure that our customers realise, both from a safety and sustainability effort, what they can do to change and revolutionise their fleet.
Why don't we start with the whole concept of artificial intelligence? So let's talk to Karl first of all. Artificial intelligence, how important is that in your world right now?
If you'd asked me that a few years ago, I'd have said not very. But now I say it's extremely important for us. We've got a lot of technicians that drive our vans right across the UK. So that's over 700 vans every day that we've got going out there serving the public. But that means they're on the UK's roads. So we need to make sure that they are driving responsibly and safely to keep themselves safe and to keep the wider public safe as well. So the AI has definitely helped us to be able to do that at a much better level than previous technology.
In what ways specifically?
So you've got AI both looking at the driver and looking at the road to help them to drive better. So if you think about what could distract you while you're driving, you've got a mobile phone, maybe not putting your seatbelt on, driving too fast, driving harshly. And the difference with the vans is they weigh a lot more than a normal car. So you've got to drive that in a different way than you would drive your normal car. So the AI technology is looking, and the way that we're using it, to change behaviour and make sure that they're doing everything that we would want them to do to both represent the brand and keep everybody safe on the road, themselves included as well. So for instance, if they decide they didn't want to put the seatbelt on, the technology would notice that, give them a warning to change that behaviour first. If they don't, it would then send a video or a picture through to one of our managers who could then, in real time, contact that colleague and make sure that they were safe and putting everything on. What we actually want it to do, and what it is doing, is changing the behaviour of the person so they do it, so we don't have to then send a message to the manager. And that's where AI has really changed the game in the last few years.
Is it helping reduce fraudulent claims?
So I think there's two things that it's doing. It's first of all making our drivers and us knowing that they're driving at the right responsible level. And two, if people see that we've got the technology within the vans, yes, it does. They do think about, we'll pick an easier target than somebody that's got clear evidence within the front of their, the van's window that, we're going to have evidence here to prove exactly what's happened. Whether that's all of the data from somebody hitting you, or if it's completely fraudulent, we can prove that nobody hit us, that we didn't hit anybody else. So absolutely it is.
Now, when we talk about this kind of information being available, this data, is that something that you share with drivers, or is it purely kept for fleet managers?
No. We want to reward good drivers, because that's the way that you change behaviour and get people wanting to make sure they're driving. So the technology we've got from Bridgestone and from Webfleet allows us to be able to give a score each week, we call the Opti score, which can then rank your drivers. And what we're trying to do, and what we do is rewarding the ones that have got the best behaviours. That drive others to want to make sure that they drive well, so absolutely.
Let's bring James Dewhurst in now to the conversation and talk about, there's so much data that's available now. What would you see as perhaps the most important source of data for safer fleet driving?
Well, for us, we've got to look at it two ways. So you've got the vehicle data and you've got the driver data. Now, they're becoming one and the same, because you can have the safest vehicle on the road, and if the driver isn't driving safely, that becomes the unsafest vehicle on the road. So a lot of it is the combination of those two data sets that we're starting to see. And you mentioned there with AI, what AI is doing is it's allowing us to sift through the data. Because now, as we said, there's so much data available, we need machines to look at it and filter out the stuff that we can't do. Because 800 vans on the road. You'd have to employ somebody full time to go through and spot check all that information. So the technology that's coming from AI, whether it be in stuff like cameras or whether it's even in the back end of reporting in our systems, it's filtering out events and incidents that you don't need to see. So you can focus on the 10% of the data that you need to action. And the same goes with what you're saying there about league tables. So now we're seeing so much data available. The traditional data is being increased. Obviously with footage, you're talking about having to review stuff rather than just reviewing an event in a report. You're reviewing a 20-second, load of footage, or you're having to go back through an event and you're having to look at something that could be 5 or 6 minutes. So, these things take time, and the AI now is starting to get so sophisticated. The more incidents we have on the road, the more we do, the more it means that we can refine those algorithms and start to change them so they get better and better. So we're seeing AI everywhere now because it's evolving, and it's now taking a new form that it's starting to get into the general public, and we're starting to see people become more conscious of it and use it in their everyday lives as well.
And whose decision is it that an incident is recorded and acted upon? I mean, you talk about algorithms, but does it vary from fleet to fleet as to what constitutes an incident?
Yeah, I guess when you look at some of our customers, they can control what they want to see. Every KPI can be chosen because you also may have different rules in different organisations. And for us, being operating all the way across Europe as well, we have to look at the different regions because they all have different rules as well. Data capture is not allowed in certain countries, and because in Portugal, for example, we have to be able to remove the dash cam if you go in there because they don't allow for it. So there's so many different levels of that data that we have to be careful about. But it's just becoming more readily accepted. If at first, if you had a driver-facing camera, people would, a bit like telematics 15 years ago, people would say, I'm leaving, I don't want to be with that. But now wherever they go, the technology is there. It's becoming more widely adopted. And we have to give our customers control and consultation and advice about what they activate. Most companies like yourselves did a trial first to understand, what they need to communicate, because also what you don't want to do is put this technology in without any form of communication, because then the drivers aren't engaged, you don't get the results you want, and they just feel like it's Big Brother. The technology is designed to give them a nudge so they can change their behavior, so it's not reporting straight away until they've had a chance to rectify it. And that engagement, without the engagement of the drivers, there's no point in rolling out a solution really.
James, thank you very much. We'll come back to you. I'd like to bring Gary Powell from Bridgestone into the conversation now. Let's talk tyres. Mm-hmm. Gary, now your business is selling tyres, but how seriously do you take the whole aspect of education and so that the users of your tyres understand when to change them, what tyres to use, what's an appropriate tyre?
Extremely seriously. With regards to Bridgestone, we've got two elements. We've got our training department that focuses very much with regards to fleet and dealer. So they do face-to-face training, and that's very much like React, roadside breakdown. Also with regards to licensed commercial tyre as well, they deliver on that. Also things like wheel security, which is really, really critical as well. So we provide those sort of face-to-face trainings. In terms of innovation, we've just recently launched the Bridgestone Training Network, which is a web-based platform that, both for our internal customers as well as external customers, where you can register and then you can receive either live trainings or video trainings as well. Also with regards to selecting the right product for the right sort of like fleet operation, because fleet operations are really, really complex, and you need the right product, and we've got a wide range of product portfolio. So it's having the right tyre fitted to your fleet, or even to your private vehicle, with regards to things like tyre labelling grades, with reference to rolling resistance, wet grip and noise. So it's making that right choice so you get the optimum performance, and in doing so, for us, you get happy customers, and that's what we want, because happy customers come back for more. So,
well, no, you've been a tyre designer, so you've
Yes.
seen the whole process. Just talk us through, how to innovate these days in tyre design.
I think it's probably the most exciting time in tyre design than there's ever been. There's so much innovation out there at the moment, especially with regards to the development of EVs. So there's a lot of work that we've gone into in terms of run flat tyre technology. There's also things like airless concept as well, because the future is autonomous. So you need that extended mobility, even though you may have had an incident like a puncture, something like that. Also, there's been a lot of work in, compounding development, because, the big driver, both from the OEMs, but also, from the customer base as well, with regards to fuel consumption or energy consumption. So we've done a lot of work in terms of pattern development, also with regards to compounding development as well, so that we can get low silica designs to deliver that low rolling resistance, to give us that range, whether it's reducing CO2 emissions or with regards to extending the life of the battery. So a lot of work is involved in that. There's a technology called NanoProtec, which is a technology where, in terms of modern day compounds now, you have both carbon black and silica. Silica is introduced to reduce rolling resistance. And the thing is, it's been really difficult. It's a bit like baking a cake, I suppose. It's been really difficult to mix those carbon black and silica molecules together to get a really good dispersion. The problem that you've got in trying to get very good dispersion is that you need longer mixing times. The problem is that the longer you mix a compound, the hotter it gets because of friction, and what you start to do is cure the compound in the mixer rather than in the press. So the thing is that trying to get that very good dispersion has been very difficult. So with NanoProtec and also new mixing techniques, we've been able to get really good distribution between carbon black and silica. And the simple analogy that I give it is that if you take a cookie, chocolate cookie, so if you've got the chocolate all in 1/4, then as you taste that cookie, you're going to get different experiences. So if you can distribute the chocolate bits across that cookie evenly, it means that every mouthful that you take is the same. And that's what we're trying to do with regards to tread compound in terms of the block of tread rubber. Get even distribution of carbon black and silica, and that means you can get state-of-the-art rolling resistance.
Gary, thank you very much indeed, and we will return to Gary a little bit later. I'd like to throw a couple of things out to all three now for us to consider. And I was listening to the radio in the car yesterday, and a news item was that self-driving buses are now operating over the Forth Road Bridge. They don't have a driver, but they have instead 2 people ready to take control should the bus experience difficulties. James, is that a big step forward? Is that going to be everyday news soon that we won't really pay much attention to? It sounded very exciting for me yesterday.
Yeah, and I saw the press release and some of the footage that was involved. I mean, you look at what Gary was speaking about there in terms of autonomous, but the future is CASE, so it's connected, autonomous, shared, and electric. And when you see, we've in my local area they've got a small version of one of these buses that just moves a small number of miles. But when you're seeing that journey, we have to start these trends now, because they, again, a bit like AI we were speaking about earlier, it's going to improve technology over time. You saw Tesla launching some of the stuff with self-driving cars, having to take a back step with it, and constantly refining it. It will happen. It is a matter of time, because the desire is there, the requests are there, the benefits are there. Because if you think about mobility for people in older ages that can't get about anymore, there'll be something there for everybody. So I think it will happen. The technology and the decarbonisation part is also important, and it can help control, driving, because the best way we're going to get the best out of vehicles is going to be through autonomy and through machine learning in those areas, because then we will have control over exactly what happens to that vehicle. So it will happen over time, but it's going to be a journey, and there'll be lots of stops in the road, there'll be lots of changes. The project there is going to be a great one for learning, and then they can start to look at it in other areas. And then obviously as the roads get more tougher, the routes get tougher, there'll be more to take in. This is very much almost like a tram service at the moment. So it's about how do we take that forward in the next steps.
Okay, Karl, what are your clients saying about the future? What kind of concerns do they have, and what excitement is there about the opportunities?
So I think, especially for Halfords and a lot of our customers, EV is electric vehicles is where most consumers are going to now. It's being led by the company car market, but if you look over the last few years, a bigger proportion of people now have access to an electronic vehicle. They're coming down in price. and they are a more efficient vehicle, better for the environment, as we've talked about, and decarbonisation. So people are looking at what does that mean for their journey? So what is an EV compared to an internal combustion engine? What's the difference? And tyres is a big part of that as well, because in a normal car you don't realise the noise that goes on around you because you've got the noise of the engine. When you remove that, you then, as tyre technology, as Gary was talking about, becomes really important, not just for safety, but for also comfort and noise around you as well. But our consumers are definitely moving towards a more EV future.
Gary, how are you going to get silent running then for tyres? Is that going to be a possibility?
Noise is becoming more and more important because obviously we're moving towards mega cities as well. We're talking about 24-hour, 7 days a week operation as well. So, and in fact, if you stand by the side of the motorway, all the noise that you can hear is not exhaust or engine, it's tyre noise. So already there's legislation with regards to R117-02 with regards to noise levels, and if you're above that you can't sell your tyre in Europe. But also the OEMs put big demands on us as well with regards to both internal noise and external noise. And of course there's the traditional ways of measuring noise with regards to microphones and acoustic heads in vehicles. But nowadays, with regards to digitalisation, we now have the digital twin tyre. So this is a tyre in the virtual environment, which is mirrors that of the tyre in the real world, and therefore we can do simulation. So we can do perming exercises on terms of pattern to get the lowest level of noise from the tyre. And that also speeds up to market as well in terms of development, and also it's a lot cheaper as well when you're working in the virtual world. So a lot of work in terms of patent development, a lot of work in terms of casing development. One thing that we have is, especially for EVs, but also for internal combustion engines, is Be Silent. Which is a foam that's placed on the inner liner. I say to dealers, it's not packaging, so please do not rip it out, but it's to reduce internal tyre resonance, so which is around about 250 Hertz, which is the natural frequency of a tyre cavity, so every tyre will have that noise. And of course, as cars get quieter with regards to EV, then that becomes the dominant frequency, which is a sort of like a droning noise. So what the foam does, it's as the tread blocks hit the road surface, it develops a vibration. Vibration is noise. As it passes through the foam, then the noise decays. Hits the rim, bounces back and decays to nothing. So yeah, Be Silent is a way in which we can reduce noise levels both externally and internally within the cabin. So those are the sort of exciting technologies that are being developed.
Whilst that's exciting, I guess the other challenge is now we're talking about a vehicle that's silent, a tyre that's silent. From a safety perspective,
Yes.
which is what we're here to talk about,
Yes.
we've then got to look at, how do we make sure that, that the pedestrians are aware of that? Because we're here to talk about road safety, and that includes pedestrians that can be involved in these instances. And I know, like my vehicle, when it goes into reverse, it makes a noise now to kind of counteract that. So it's kind of, we're going full circle, and this, connected environment now, it's going to become a challenge to make sure we keep pedestrians safe.
We have been talking about EV. Karl Baker, what about hydrogen?
So I think for bigger vehicles, that is absolutely what will happen over time. I think the technology is there. Is it scaled yet? No, and I think that's going to take a period of time. But I think definitely for HGVs, and the debate will be how far you come down the scale of cars, hydrogen will play an important part of it. That's my view. But we can see that for bigger vehicles, battery technology is brilliant for personal vehicles and a certain size of vehicles. Whether it will ever get to the size of a HGV is debatable, so hydrogen will fulfil that role, would be my view.
James Dewhurst, let me put this to you. Those in cities and on the big networks or close to them are well served for electric at the moment, but not everybody is. Are we going to see an improvement? Is there going to be better access to charging for those who are slightly away from the networks?
I hope so, because one of the things that I see living in a remote area is the challenges that we were discussing just before. it's fine if you can live in a city and you can charge at home and do those things, but we want these vehicles to go everywhere, because and when you look at some of the areas and some of the tourist areas where people come on holiday, they become very quickly overwhelmed. And then again, what happens then is that creates anxiety in the driver, which can cause stress, which can then cause accidents. People take their eyes off the road. They might be tempted to pick up their phone and find a new charge station because that one's not working. So the network has got to be reliable, and then that takes the stress away. One thing that I can say with when I drive is I know that I can always trust the network that I'm going to, and I know those places, so that takes the anxiety out of it. And especially when we start transitioning that into a business fleet, and fleets like Karl's, when they start to electrify and go through those processes, they've already got stresses going on in their day. They've already got to think about how many jobs they've got to do, how customers they've got to keep happy and informed on the way. The charging needs to be seamless in order to do that. And one of the things we're trying to do as a business is not just within the wider Bridgestone. Now we have a Bridgestone Data Solutions business that's also starting to be able to aggregate the data that we collect from our 2 million vehicles across Europe and use it in different ways. So we're seeing different use cases, everything from from looking at like lag times of vehicles and stationary points of vehicles, so we can start to advise local councils and local people about where these charge points should be, because this is the places vehicles dwell, to stuff like road conditions, where we can actually look at the road conditions in the area, again taken from all of our connected devices. Is there potholes in these areas? Are they unsafe roads? Are they getting slick? Are they getting wet during certain times? And feeding that information back. So again, and then that also ties in with the AI conversation we had in earlier. There's so much data now available. The direction of our business isn't just around the units in vehicles. It's about the data that comes out of that and how we start to present it. And for safety, that's going to be really key, because the more data we provide for people and how safe the roads are, you can then plan the routes better, maybe avoid some of those areas, give the driver less stress, and move forward as we as a business and we as a company, and evolve through people like Karl as well and their drivers.
Gary, last word to you. What are you most excited about in terms of tyre development and its contribution to fleet safety and overall road safety?
I think it's that drive with regards to that revolution towards EV, because the thing is that I've seen a picture of London in 1900s, and all you could see was horse and cart and one automobile. In 10 years, the same picture, and you can see all automobile and one horse and cart. That's without Google, that's without the World Wide Web. So this change in terms of moving to EV is going to be rapid. And therefore, already, as I said, it's such an exciting time with regards to tyre design. We've got products like Enlighten, where we're looking at new materials, hybrid materials of lighter weight, but with the same strength, because durability is important in terms of safety. We're looking at tyres with reduced tread depth as well. So we're innovating in pattern design. I've mentioned about tread compound with Nano Protec. So it's not just one area of the tyre. It's the materials that we're using. It's the compounds we're using. It's the body ply shape and casing shape, and it's the patterns that we're developing with designs that mean that we can deliver good levels of wet performance and dry performance at minimal remaining tread depths. We've got one design from the Enlighten family for the VW ID3, which is an electric vehicle. Traditionally, you'd be removing tyres in terms of remaining tread depth around about 3 millimetres, because wet performance decays below 3 millimetres. But with this design, you can run it down to 1.6, which is a legal limit, to 1.8. So, and that's because of the advancements in pattern and compounding technology. That means that we can deliver safe, wet and dry performance at those reduced tread depths. And of course, those weight savings, and also linked to sustainability, the fact that you can run down to those remaining tread depths means that you get the most from the product, and that's good for, you know, fuel saving, that's good for sustainability, and and there's more to come, because Bridgestone is continually innovating. We're spending over 600 million euros globally each year in terms of tyre development. And like I say, I started as a tyre designer. I'd love to still be a tyre designer, because it's so exciting with so many things at the moment out there that we're looking at.
I think the other area as well, when we look at where we're going to, all our worlds are going to connect, is the connectivity part of this. So, you know, once we have these new compounds and we're running tyres close to the wire, we need to then have the tyre pressure monitoring systems in play in order to do that. And now Bridgestone are starting to, you know, are actually providing TPMS systems and integration into Webfleet, so that, and then feedback to the drivers. So the drivers on the road will start to get warnings when their tyres are starting to, you know, show risk, as well as the fleet manager, so that we can stop the blowouts, because that's going to have a operational impact for you, but also it can have a safety impact on the roads. And so many dangerous and you know, life-threatening incidents happen from blowouts of tyres. So this connectivity and using all these new wonderful technology with the tyres needs to be monitored, and that's where all our worlds will start to collide.
And of course, we're talking about smart tyres now. So, you know, tyres that can talk to the car, can talk to the cloud. So it's all about, it is a connected future. You know, with that in mind as well, you know, both in terms of tyre technology linked to digital technology, I think, you know, we've got a lot of exciting innovations to come for the future.
Well, there we go. That's our little snapshot of opportunities and challenges in a world that's changing very rapidly. I'd like to thank Gary Powell, Karl Baker and James Dewhurst for joining us here at Bridgestone. Thank the Bridgestone team for hosting us so well. But for now, from me, James Lughurst, it's cheerio and thanks for watching.